Get off this plane right now, or I will have security drag you out by your neck.
Vicky Ashford didn't ask, didn't check a manifest, didn't say excuse me.
I understand you have concerns, but I'm not leaving this seat.
This is a private aircraft for clients who actually belong here. That's where your kind belongs.
She stood in the aisle of the Gulfstream G700, one hand on her hip, the other pointing at the woman in seat 4B like she was pointing at something the dog dragged in. The woman in 4B was 60 years old, silver hair pulled back in a low bun, a faded Spelman College hoodie, the maroon almost pink from years of washing, khaki pants, walking shoes with the sole peeling near the left toe, a carry-on bag tucked under the seat, zipped tight, stuffed so full the seams stretched. She had been smiling at something on her phone when Vicky's voice cracked through the cabin like a gunshot. "Did you hear me?" Vicky stepped closer. "The way you step towards something you want off your property?" I said, "Get up. This is Summit Air. This is a private aircraft for clients who actually belong here. You know what that means? It means people who don't walk in wearing a 20-year-old sweatshirt and shoes that are falling apart. Budget flights are at the other terminal. The ones with the middle seats and the crying babies. That's where your kind belongs." The woman looked up, calm. "I have a reservation." "No, ma'am. What you have is a lot of nerve." Vicky checked the tablet in her hand, scrolling with two French-tipped nails. Tapped. Read. Looked at the woman, looked at the screen. Maureen Langston. Funny, because there's no way someone who actually paid for this seat would show up looking like the cleaning crew. She leaned in, close enough for the woman to smell her perfume. "So let me make this real simple for you, old lady. This leather you're sitting on costs more than whatever little apartment you're going home to. This air is not your air. And that raggedy hoodie?" She flicked the fabric of the woman's sleeve with two fingers. "The way you brush lint off a jacket. Grandma, you look like you mop the floors on these planes. You don't get to sit in the seats." Someone in the back laughed, a short, nasal laugh, the kind that picks a side without saying a word. The rest of the cabin went quiet. Eyes on phones, eyes on windows, eyes on anything but the woman in 4B. Not one voice, not one objection. Just the low hum of the engines and a 60-year-old woman sitting alone in a room full of people. Maureen Langston sat still, her fingers resting on a handkerchief in her lap. Yellowed lace edges, navy thread in the corner, stitching two letters she traced without looking. She did not stand. She did not raise her voice. She looked at Vicky Ashford the way a woman looks at a storm she has walked through before. Vicky had no idea she had just handed her career, her lover's empire, and a $210 million contract to the one woman on Earth she should never have touched. A 60-year-old woman sitting in a seat she paid for, and not one person in that cabin opened their mouth. That's the part that burns.
Let me know where you're watching from right now, and what time it is where you are. I love knowing this family stretches across time zones.
And wherever you are, I pray God keeps you covered and gives you the strength to stay still when staying still is the hardest thing you've ever done. And if this channel has been blessing your day, don't forget to show some love with a like and a subscribe. That's how we keep these stories coming. Now, to understand how Maureen Langston ended up in that seat wearing a faded hoodie with ginger ale running down her face, we need to start 3 days earlier. A quiet house in Tuskegee, Alabama, a carry-on bag on the floor, and 12 picture books wrapped in brown paper with children's names written in her handwriting. Maureen Langston packed the carry-on bag 3 days before the flight. Not clothes, books. 12 picture books, each one wrapped in brown paper, with a child's name written in her handwriting. A stuffed elephant for Kezia, the youngest girl at Hope House, who had asked for one in her last letter. A bag of lemon drops for Mr. Harold, the groundskeeper who had been there since before Mo built the place. She zipped the bag tight, the seams stretching, and set it by the front door of her house in Tuskegee like it was already waiting to leave. The flight was Summit Air, private aviation, booked through her assistant Cynthia under the company name. No photo attached, no title, just a name on a manifest. Maureen Langston, that was all. Mo did this on purpose? She had been doing it for 30 years, long before she stepped down as CEO of Langston Capital Partners and handed the company to her son, Elijah. She flew anonymous. She walked into hotels anonymous. She sat in restaurants anonymous, not because she was ashamed, because her mother, Evelyn Langston, who spent 37 years cleaning rooms at the downtown Hilton in 3rd Ward, Houston, had taught her one thing that no MBA program ever put in a textbook. You want to know somebody's heart, baby? Watch how they treat the person they think can't do nothing for them. Evelyn had learned that lesson with mop water on her shoes. Mo carried it with her in a handkerchief with yellowed lace edges and 2 letters stitched in navy thread EL. It was in her hoodie pocket right now. It was always in her pocket. But this flight was not a test. Not officially. Mo was going to Montgomery to see the children at Hope House. The annual visit. 17 kids who called her Mama Mo and sent her drawings in the mail. That was the reason she was on this plane. That was the only reason. The contract was a separate matter. Summit Air Private Aviation owed Langston Capital a renewal signature on their FBO agreement, the ground infrastructure deal that kept Summit Air's planes fueled, hangared, and operational at 112 airports nationwide. The current rate was preferred, discounted, generous, and Summit Air needed it the way a drowning man needs the rope. $210 million in debt. 3 anchor clients gone in the past year. Competitors circling with FBO bids 40% higher than what Langston charged. Without Mo's signature on the renewal, Summit Air could not survive the quarter. Mo knew this. Elijah had briefed her. The paperwork was ready. All she had to do was sign after she came back from Montgomery. But that was later.
Right now, 6:45 in the morning, Teterboro Airport, New Jersey.
Mo pulled her 12-year-old Honda Accord into the Summit Air Terminal parking lot. She wore the Spellman hoodie from 1983, maroon faded almost to pink, khaki pants, walking shoes with the left sole peeling near the toe. She could afford any car in the lot. She could afford every car in the lot. She kept the Accord because it still ran and because vanity had never been a language she learned to speak. She walked through the terminal doors, carrying the stuffed carry-on in one hand and her phone in the other. Scrolling through photos Cassia had sent that morning. A drawing of a brown stick figure with silver hair holding hands with a smaller brown stick figure. Underneath, in crooked purple crayon, Mama Mo and me. Mo smiled. The woman at the check-in counter glanced at her, glanced at the hoodie, glanced at the screen, processed the boarding pass without comment. Professional, neutral, fine. Mo walked down the jetway and into the Gulfstream G700. Cream leather seats, warm lighting, the smell of new leather and fresh coffee. 6 seats, 4 occupied. She found 4B, stowed her bag underneath, buckled in, and went back to Kezia's drawings. Marcus Webb, the junior flight attendant, 28, 6 months into his probation period, brought her a glass of water and a warm towel. "Here you go, ma'am. We'll be departing in about 20 minutes. He said it the way he said it to every passenger, polite even. No judgment in his voice. Mo nodded. "Thank you, baby." Marcus paused for half a second. Something about the way she said it, the way his grandmother said it. He almost smiled, caught himself, and went back to the galley. For 8 minutes, everything was fine. Then the curtain between the galley and the cabin pulled back, and Victoria Ashford stepped through. She was 35, blonde hair pinned in a perfect chignon, French-tipped nails, heels on a plane, which she wore because she believed presentation was authority. She had been Summit Air's lead cabin director for 9 years, and she ran the cabin the way some people run a country. Absolute. Her tablet was in her left hand. Her eyes swept the cabin the way a landlord checks a property. Seat 1, fine. Seat 2, fine. Row 3, fine. Seat 4B. She stopped. Her eyes went to the hoodie. The shoes, the silver hair, the carry-on bag stuffed under the seat, seams bulging. She looked at Mo the way you look at a line of ants walking across your kitchen counter. And then she opened her mouth. "Get off this plane right now, or I will have security drag you out by your neck." The words hit the cabin before Mo could finish looking at Kezia's drawing. She lowered her phone, slow. The way you set down something fragile when the room starts shaking. Vicky Ashford stood 3 feet away, feet planted in the aisle like she owned the ground beneath them. One hand on her hip, the other pointing at Mo. Not pointing the way you point to give directions. Pointing the way you point at something you want removed. Did you hear me? Vicky said. I said get up. This is Summit Air. This is a private aircraft for clients who actually belong here. You know what that means? It means people who don't walk in wearing a 20-year-old sweatshirt and shoes that are falling apart. Budget flights are at the other terminal, the ones with the middle seats and the crying babies. That's where your kind belongs. Mo looked at her. Steady, the way Evelyn used to look at the hotel manager when he raised his voice. Not afraid, just measuring. I have a reservation. Mo said, quiet, not defensive. Just a fact placed on the table like a glass of water. No, ma'am. What you have is a lot of nerve. Vicky checked the tablet, scrolling with those French-tipped nails. Tapped, read, looked at Mo. Looked at the screen, back at Mo. Maureen Langston, funny. Because there's no way someone who actually paid for this seat would show up looking like the cleaning crew. She leaned in, close. Close enough that Mo could see the mascara clumping at the corner of her left eye. Close enough that her perfume, something expensive, something sharp, pressed against Mo's face like a hand. So, let me make this real simple for you, old lady. This leather you're sitting on costs more than whatever little apartment you're going home to. This air is not your air. And that raggedy hoodie? She reached out and flicked the fabric of Mo's sleeve with 2 fingers. The way you brush lint off a jacket. The way you touch something you consider beneath you. Grandma, you look like you mop the floors on these planes. You don't get to sit in the seats. Someone in the back laughed. Short, nasal, the kind of laugh that picks a side without saying a word. Mo didn't turn to see who it was. She didn't need to. She had heard that laugh before, in hotel lobbies, in bank offices, in boardrooms before anyone knew her name. The laugh that says, you are exactly where I expected you to be. The rest of the cabin went quiet. Eyes on phones, eyes on windows, eyes on anything but the woman in 4B. Mo said nothing. She set her phone on her lap. Screen down, Kezia's drawing facing the leather. She folded her hands over the handkerchief, and she waited. Vicky took the silence as surrender. That's what I thought. She straightened up, smoothed her blazer, and turned to Marcus, who was standing near the galley like his shoes had been nailed to the floor. Marcus, who processed this passenger? Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The booking came through the system, Miss Ashford, standard confirmation. Everything was what? Vicky cut him off without looking at him. You see this woman, and you think everything is fine? This is exactly how it happened in 2019. You weren't here for that, were you? I was. Someone like her walked right onto my plane with a fake booking. And I spent 3 months on suspension cleaning up a mess I didn't make. She turned back to Mo. So forgive me if I don't take your reservation at face value. Mo looked at Vicky the way you look at weather. Not with anger, not with fear. With the patience of someone who has seen this sky before and knows what comes after. I understand you have concerns, Mo said, but I'm not leaving this seat. The cabin shifted, not physically. Emotionally, the quiet became a different kind of quiet. The couple in row 3 exchanged a glance. The man in seat 1 pressed his headphones tighter against his ears. Vicky's jaw tightened. Her neck flushed pink from the collar up. She was not accustomed to being told no, not on her plane, not by someone who looked like this. Fine, she said. The word came out like a door closing. She reached down, picked up the glass of ginger ale from Mo's armrest, the one Marcus had poured 2 minutes before Vicky arrived, and held it above Mo's head. Last chance, Grandma? Mo didn't move. Her fingers stayed on the handkerchief. Her eyes stayed on Vicky's face. Vicky poured the ginger ale over Maureen Langston's head. It came down cold, down her silver hair, down her forehead into her eyes, soaking the collar of the Spellman hoodie, dripping off her chin onto the handkerchief in her lap, the one with the yellowed lace, the one with the navy thread, EL, The letters darkened as the fabric absorbed the liquid. Mo closed her eyes, just for a moment. Not because of the cold, because of something else. Something 37 years old. Mop water on shoes. Clean it up. That's what you're here for. She opened her eyes. Vicky was already moving. She grabbed the handle of Mo's carry-on bag from under the seat, yanked it into the aisle, and dragged it toward the front of the cabin. The zipper, already strained, split open halfway down. Brown paper packages tumbled out, picture books. A stuffed elephant, gray with a pink bow, rolled across the cream carpet and stopped against the base of seat 2. Vicky didn't look down. She kept pulling the bag. More books fell out, small rectangles of brown paper with children's names in careful handwriting. Isa, Destiny, Marcus, Kessia. They scattered across the aisle like leaves. "Get your things and get off my plane," Vicky said, standing at the front of the cabin with the half-empty bag hanging from her hand. "You are contaminating this aircraft?" The young man in seat 2, polo shirt, gelled hair, had been recording the entire time. He zoomed in on Mo's face, wet, still, ginger ale dripping from her chin. Then he panned down to the stuffed elephant on the floor. Then back to Vicky. He was already composing the caption in his head. Marcus stood in the galley doorway. His hand was shaking. The sparkling water bottle he had been holding was on the counter now because he couldn't grip it anymore. He looked at the books on the floor. He looked at the names written on the brown paper. He looked at Mo, 60 years old, sitting in ginger ale, not saying a word, and he thought about his grandmother. He thought about his grandmother and he couldn't breathe. He pulled his small leather notebook from his back pocket, and he started writing. Mo reached up and wiped the ginger ale from her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked down at the handkerchief. The 2 letters were still there, darkened but visible. She folded it once, pressed it against her chest. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket, pulled out her phone and turned on the voice recorder. She set it on the armrest, screen facing up, the red circle pulsing. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The phone was listening now, and Vicky Ashford, standing at the front of the cabin, holding a bag full of children's books, had no idea that every word she had just spoken was about to follow her for the rest of her life. Vicky did not wait for Mo to move. She picked up the radio clipped to her belt and pressed the button with her thumb, calm, like she was ordering lunch. "Ground team, this is Ashford on Gulf 779er. I have an unauthorized passenger in the cabin. Female, mid-60s, refused to deplane after multiple requests. She is becoming agitated, and I consider her a potential threat to crew safety. Requesting security escort upon arrival at Montgomery Regional. Over." Mo heard every word. She sat in the wet seat, ginger ale soaking through the hoodie into her skin, and she listened to Victoria Ashford describe her to ground security the way you describe a package that arrived at the wrong address. Unauthorized. Agitated. Threat. She was none of those things. She was a 60-year-old woman with a valid booking and a stuffed elephant on the floor 3 rows ahead of her. The radio crackled back. A male voice confirmed security would be on the tarmac when they landed in Montgomery. 42 minutes. Vicky clipped the radio back to her belt and turned to the cabin. Her composure was already reassembled. The flush on her neck had faded. She smiled at the couple in row 3 the way a hostess smiles at guests after a minor inconvenience. "I apologize for the disruption. We'll be underway shortly, and I'll have fresh beverages for everyone once we're at altitude." The wife nodded. The husband raised his champagne glass a half-inch. The man in seat 1 hadn't moved. His headphones were still on. His eyes were still closed. Whether he was asleep or pretending to be asleep didn't matter. The result was the same. Nobody asked about the woman in 4B. Nobody asked why there were children's books scattered across the aisle. Nobody asked why a stuffed elephant with a pink bow was lying against the base of seat 2 like something a child had dropped on the way out. Marcus picked up the books, one by one. He didn't look at Vicky while he did it. He read the names on the brown paper as he stacked them. Isaiah, Destiny. Marcus, his own name, in someone else's handwriting, wrapped around a picture book meant for a child he would never meet. He put the books back into the torn bag, picked up the elephant, held it for a moment longer than he needed to. Then he walked to the back of the cabin and set the bag on the empty seat across from Mo. He didn't say anything. He couldn't, not with Vicky 3 rows up watching. But he set the bag down gently, the way you set down something that matters, and Mo saw it. She saw the way his hands lingered on the zipper he tried to close. She saw the way he turned away quickly, pulling the leather notebook from his back pocket before he even reached the galley. The plane taxied, took off. The Gulf Stream climbed through thin clouds over New Jersey and turned south toward Alabama. For 20 minutes, Vicky ignored Mo completely. This was its own kind of cruelty. She served beverages to every other passenger, warm towels, a cheese plate for row 3. She walked past 4B each time without turning her head, the way you walk past furniture. Mo sat in the damp hoodie, the ginger ale drying sticky on her neck, the handkerchief folded in her lap, and she watched. She watched the way Vicky laughed with the couple in row 3, head tilted, hand on the seat back, performing warmth like a woman who had practiced it in a mirror. She watched the way Vicky touched the young man in seat 2 on the shoulder when she handed him his drink, casual, familiar, like they were at a cocktail party. She watched the way Vicky checked her reflection in the darkened window near the galley, adjusting a single strand of hair that had fallen from the chignon. And Mo understood. She understood the way she understood balance sheets and leverage ratios and the weight of a contract. Vicky Ashford was not a person who lost control. Vicky Ashford was a person who had calculated in real time that the woman in 4B was someone she could destroy without consequence. That the hoodie and the shoes and the silver hair and the skin added up to a number so low that it did not register on whatever scale Vicky used to measure human value. Mo had seen this arithmetic before. She had spent 40 years in rooms where people did this math. The only difference was that in those rooms, they were usually smart enough to do it quietly. The phone was still recording. The red circle pulsed on the armrest like a heartbeat. At 37,000 feet, Mo allowed herself to close her eyes. Not to sleep, to remember. She thought about her mother coming home from the Hilton with bleach under her fingernails. She thought about the way Evelyn would stand at the stove on Sunday, making sweet potato pie, humming a gospel song Mo could never quite name. Something slow, something that sounded like it was holding the walls up. She thought about the handkerchief, the one she was holding right now, and how her mother had stitched those letters during a 15-minute lunch break, sitting on an overturned bucket in a supply closet because the break room was for guests only. She opened her eyes. The handkerchief was still damp. The letters were still there. Mo reached for her phone, not the one recording, her personal phone tucked in her khaki pocket. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she hadn't called in 2 months. Elijah. Her thumb hovered. She didn't press it, not yet, because Mo knew something about timing. She had built a 300-location empire on timing, on knowing when to buy and when to wait, on knowing the difference between a reaction and a response. Evelyn had taught her that too, without ever saying it in words. Every time her mother came home from the Hilton and didn't throw something, didn't scream, didn't quit, she was teaching Mo that power is not what you do when you're angry. Power is what you do after. Mo put the phone back in her pocket. She would wait until they landed. She would wait until Vicky called security. She would wait until whatever was going to happen in Montgomery happened, and then she would respond. The plane began its descent at 9:14 in the morning. The pilot's voice came through the speaker, smooth, rehearsed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our approach into Montgomery Regional Airport. Flight attendants, prepare for arrival. Vicky stood up from the jump seat near the galley, straightened her blazer, checked her reflection one more time. Then she walked to the front of the cabin and picked up the radio. Ground team, confirming security escort is in position for arrival. Passenger is still on board. Female, black, approximately 60 years of age, wearing a maroon sweatshirt. She may become confrontational during removal. Advise your team to be prepared. She said it loud enough for Mo to hear. She wanted Mo to hear. Mo heard. She folded the handkerchief one more time, pressed the 2 letters against her palm, and slipped it into her pocket. She looked out the window. Alabama was coming up beneath them, red clay and green trees, and the river curving through the city like a vein. Somewhere in Montgomery, 17 children were setting up chairs in the Hope House common room. Kezia had made a banner out of butcher paper and purple crayon. It said, "Welcome home, Mama Mo," with the letters getting smaller toward the end because she ran out of space. Mo didn't know about the banner, but she knew the children were waiting, and she knew that in about 15 minutes, 2 security officers were going to walk onto this plane and treat her like a criminal because a 35-year-old woman with a French manicure decided she didn't look expensive enough to sit in a leather chair. The wheels touched the ground. The cabin jolted. The ginger ale stain on Mo's hoodie had dried into a dark, stiff patch over her heart. The plane rolled to a stop. Through the window, Mo could see them. 2 men in dark uniforms standing on the tarmac, arms crossed, waiting for the door to open. The door opened, and the heat of Montgomery in June came through like a wall. Mo smelled it before she felt it: cut grass, jet fuel, warm asphalt. Alabama air. The air she had been breathing since she built Hope House 12 years ago. The 2 security officers boarded, both white, both mid-40s, both built like men who spent their weekends at the gym and their weekdays following orders. The one in front had a shaved head and a radio on his shoulder crackling with static. The one behind him carried a clipboard. Vicky met them at the front of the cabin. She spoke to them the way a homeowner speaks to exterminators. Calm, grateful, pointing toward the problem. "She's in 4B. I've asked her to leave multiple times. She refused. She became verbally aggressive, and I had to physically manage the situation. I'd like her removed, and I'd like to file a formal incident report." Mo noted the language. Verbally aggressive. Physically manage the situation. She filed those words the way she filed contract clauses. Precisely. For later. The shaved head officer walked toward Mo. He didn't introduce himself, didn't ask her name. He looked at the ginger ale stain on her hoodie, the damp silver hair, the walking shoes with the peeling sole. He looked at her the way airport security looks at a bag left unattended. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to collect your belongings and come with us." Mo looked up at him. "On what grounds?" "The cabin director has filed a report stating you were disruptive and threatening toward crew. We need to sort this out at the security office." "I was not disruptive," Mo said. "I was assaulted." "The cabin director poured a drink on my head, struck me in the face, and destroyed my personal belongings." She gestured toward the carry-on bag on the seat across from her. Zipper broken. Brown paper packages visible inside. "Those are gifts for children." The officer glanced at the bag, glanced back at Mo. His expression didn't change. "Ma'am, we can discuss all of that at the security office. Right now, I need you to stand up and come with me." Mo stood. She picked up the carry-on bag with one hand, her phone with the other. The voice recorder was still running. She walked down the aisle past the couple in row 3 who were examining their phones, past the man in seat 1 who had finally opened his eyes and was watching her leave with the expression of a man watching a taxi he decided not to take, past the young man in seat 2 who lowered his phone camera just enough to track her all the way to the door, past Marcus, who stood at the galley entrance holding a dish towel in both hands like a rosary. Their eyes met. Mo nodded once, small. "The way you nod at someone you might need later?" She walked down the air stairs into the Montgomery heat, a security officer on each side, her carry-on bag leaking picture books with every step. Behind her, through the open door, she heard Vicky's voice, bright, relieved. "I apologize again for the disruption, everyone. We'll have you on your way shortly." The door closed. Mo was escorted across the tarmac through a side entrance and into a room that smelled like floor cleaner and old coffee. Small window. Fluorescent light that buzzed at a frequency designed to make everything look worse. A metal table, 2 plastic chairs. A water bottle, sealed, placed in the center of the table like a prop. The shaved head officer sat across from her. The clipboard officer stood by the door. Neither offered her a towel. Neither asked about the ginger ale drying in her hair. Full name:
Maureen Langston.
Address. She gave the Tuskegee address. Purpose of travel: I'm visiting an orphanage in Montgomery. Hope House. The children are expecting me today. The officer wrote without looking up.
Are you aware that interfering with a flight crew is a federal offense under Title 49 of the United States Code?
I did not interfere with anyone. That's not what the report says, ma'am. His radio crackled. He held up one finger, stood, walked to the corner of the room. Listened. Mo couldn't hear the words, but she could hear the tone. A voice giving instructions. Short, clipped, authoritative. The officer came back and sat down. Something in his posture had changed. His shoulders were squarer. His questions became sharper.
Miss Langston, I'm going to be straight with you. The airline has escalated this matter.
My supervisor has been contacted directly by Summit Air executive leadership. They are treating this as a serious security incident. We may need to hold you here for several hours while we process the report and review the evidence. Mo understood immediately. Vicky had called Gerald, and Gerald had called someone, and that someone had called this man's supervisor. The chain was short, and the message was clear. Make this difficult for her. She sat still for a moment, felt the handkerchief in her pocket, still damp, pressing against her hip through the fabric. She thought about Kezia taping a banner to the wall. She thought about Mr. Harold setting up chairs. She thought about 17 children watching the front door. I'd like to make a phone call, Mo said. The officer hesitated, looked at the clipboard officer by the door. The clipboard officer shrugged. You're not under arrest. You can make a call. Mo pulled out her personal phone, opened her contacts, scrolled past Sandra Oyalaran, past Cynthia. Her thumb stopped on Elijah. She pressed the button. It rang twice. Mama? Elijah's voice was sharp awake. The voice of a man who keeps his phone on his desk face up. What's going on? Cynthia said your flight landed 30 minutes ago and you haven't checked in. I'm at the security office at Montgomery Regional.
Silence. 1 second. 2.
What do you mean you're at the security office? A flight attendant on the Summit airplane decided I didn't belong in my seat. She poured a drink on me, hit me, tore open my bag. Then she called security and told them I was the threat. I've been in a room with 2 officers for the last 20 minutes. They just told me Summit Air executive leadership called their supervisor and told them to hold me. Mo said it flat. No emotion. The way she delivered quarterly earnings reports. But Elijah had known his mother for 34 years and he heard what was underneath. He heard the sound of a woman sitting in a small room in wet clothes being treated like a criminal while children waited for her at a place she built with her own money. Mama. His voice dropped, quiet, tight, like a wire being pulled. Don't say anything else to them. Don't sign anything.
I'm getting on a plane right now. I will be there in 3 hours. Elijah.
3 hours, Mama? I'm coming. He hung up. Mo set the phone on the metal table. The screen went dark. She could see her own reflection in it, distorted, the fluorescent light making her look older than she was. The officer across from her cleared his throat. Everything all right. Mo looked at him. She folded her hands on the table, one over the other. The way Evelyn used to fold her hands in church when the sermon got long and the air got heavy and the only thing left to do was wait for the Lord to finish making his point.
Everything is fine, Mo said. My son is on his way.
The officer didn't know what that meant. He thought it meant a family member was coming to pick up an old woman from a security office.
He had no idea that in 3 hours, a private jet carrying the CEO of the largest FBO network in the United States would land on his tarmac. That the man stepping off that jet would be holding a phone with Langston Capital's legal department already on the line. And that the quiet woman sitting across from him in a ginger ale-stained hoodie was the reason his airport had fuel in its trucks and lights in its terminals. 3 hours is a long time to sit in a room that smells like floor cleaner. Mo sat. The officers rotated. The shaved head one left after the first hour, and a younger one took his place. A woman this time, late 20s, who at least brought a fresh water bottle and set it on the table without being asked. The clipboard officer stayed by the door the entire time, filling out forms, checking his phone, occasionally glancing at Mo like she was a weather report he kept forgetting to read. They asked the same questions twice. 3 times. Where was she going? Why was she on that flight? Did she raise her voice? Did she make physical contact with the crew member? Mo answered the same way each time, flat, precise. The answers didn't change because the truth doesn't need variations. At 11:30, the younger officer's phone buzzed. She picked it up, read something, and her face did something Mo recognized. Not surprise. Exactly. More like the expression of someone who just realized the ground beneath them is not as solid as they thought. She showed the screen to the clipboard officer. He read it, looked at Mo, looked at the screen again. Miss Langston? Are you aware that there's a video circulating on social media involving an incident on your flight? Mo's stomach dropped. Not because she was afraid of a video, because she knew what a video could become when the wrong person held the camera. No, she said, I'm not aware. The officer turned the phone around. Mo watched. The video was 43 seconds long. It opened with Mo standing up from her seat, her face twisted in an expression that, without context, looked aggressive. It cut to Vicky stepping backward, one hand raised, looking startled. It cut to security boarding the plane. It cut to Mo being escorted down the aisle. The caption read, "Crazy woman causes scene on private jet, gets dragged off by security, LOL." The person who filmed it had edited out everything that came before. The shouting, the ginger ale, the slap, the books on the floor,
The stuffed elephant rolling across the carpet. All of it gone.
What remained was a 60-year-old black woman looking angry on an airplane and a young blonde woman looking like a victim. The video had 4.2 million views. The comments moved too fast to read, but Mo caught fragments. She got what she deserved. Why do they always cause scenes, play stupid games? A string of laughing emojis. Someone had screenshotted Mo's face, mid-blink, mouth open, and turned it into a meme with block letters. When you book first class with food stamps, Mo set the phone down on the table carefully. The way you set down something that might break if you let your hands do what they wanted to do. She asked to use the restroom. The female officer walked her down the hall to a single stall with a lock that barely worked and a mirror with a crack running through the middle. Mo closed the door, locked it, stood in front of the mirror. She looked at herself. The Spellman hoodie stiff where the ginger ale had dried, a dark patch over her heart shaped like a continent. Her silver hair, still damp at the edges, flattened against her scalp on the left side where the liquid had run down. Her face, the same face her mother had, same jaw, same quiet eyes, now looking back at her from a cracked mirror in a security office bathroom in Montgomery, Alabama. She pulled the handkerchief from her pocket, unfolded it. The lace edges were stained light brown. The navy thread was darker where it had absorbed the ginger ale. E.L., her mother's initials, stitched in a supply closet during a 15-minute lunch break because the break room was for guests only. Mo pressed the handkerchief against her face and stood there for a long time. She thought about the children. Kessia's banner was probably starting to curl at the edges by now.
Mr. Harold had probably checked the driveway 4 times.
17 kids sitting in chairs they set up themselves, watching a door that hadn't opened. She thought about calling Hope House, telling them she'd be late, but late meant maybe tomorrow. And tomorrow meant explaining why. And explaining why meant the children would know that Mama Mo had been treated like something to be removed, and Mo did not want that image in their heads. She did not want Kezia to know that the woman who brought her books and elephants and birthday cards had been sitting in a room with fluorescent lights and metal chairs because someone decided she looked like the help. She thought about Elijah. He was in the air right now, coming to get her, but Elijah wanted to fix this quietly. Negotiate, settle, move on. Protect the company, protect the contract, protect his mother from being seen like this by the whole world. But the whole world had already seen 4.2 million times. And what they saw was a lie. Man, can we just sit with that for a second?
Mo lowered the handkerchief, looked at herself in the cracked mirror. She was 60 years old. She was tired.
She was sitting in a bathroom in a security office wearing a stained hoodie, and the internet was laughing at her, and her son wanted her to be quiet, and 17 children were waiting for her. And the woman who poured ginger ale on her head was probably 30,000 feet in the air right now, sipping champagne and texting her married boyfriend about what a good day she'd had. Mo could walk away. She could let Elijah handle it. Sign the contract, take the settlement, go to Hope House, hug the children, and never fly Summit Air again. She could do that. It would be easy.
It would be smart.
It would be exactly what Evelyn Langston would have done. Because Evelyn was a woman who cleaned up mop water and went home and made sweet potato pie and never told anyone except her daughter.
But Mo was not her mother. Mo loved her mother more than she loved oxygen, but she was not her mother. Evelyn had survived by bending.
Mo had survived by building, and what Mo had built was big enough to break the people who just broke her. She folded the handkerchief. Carefully, pressed the letters flat with her thumb. El put it back in her pocket. She walked out of the bathroom, sat back down at the metal table and looked at the officer across from her. "I'd like to make another phone call." She dialed Sandra Oyaleran. Sandra picked up on the first ring. She always picked up on the first ring. That was why Mo paid her. "Sandra, it's Mo. I need you in Montgomery tonight. Bring everything." Sandra didn't ask what happened. She didn't ask, "Are you okay?" She heard Mo's voice, the specific frequency of a woman who had made a decision that could not be unmade, and she said the only thing that mattered.
"I'm already packing."
Elijah Langston landed at Montgomery Regional at 2:17 in the afternoon. He stepped off the Langston Capital Gulfstream in a charcoal three-piece suit, no tie, top button undone, the only sign that he had dressed in a hurry. His jaw was set the way it's set when quarterly numbers came in wrong. Except this was not quarterly numbers. This was his mother. He walked across the tarmac in the June heat without slowing down. A Langston Capital attorney named Davis walked 2 steps behind him carrying a leather briefcase. Elijah didn't need Davis for what he was about to do in the security office. He needed Davis for what came after. The clipboard officer saw them coming through the glass door and stood up from his chair so fast it scraped the floor. He recognized the name on the visitor badge before Elijah finished writing it. Langston, the same Langston on the fuel contracts. The same Langston on the hangar lease. The same Langston on the FBO service agreement that kept this airport operational. Elijah walked into the room where his mother had been sitting for 5 hours and 23 minutes. He looked at her, the stained hoodie, the flattened silver hair, the water bottle on the table, still sealed, because nobody had thought to open it for her. He stood there for 3 seconds. Then he turned to the shaved-head officer who had returned for the afternoon shift and said, in a voice that was quiet the way a blade is quiet, "My mother has been sitting in this room for over 5 hours. She has not been charged. She has not been arrested. She has told you what happened to her, and you have done nothing with that information. This is over. She's leaving right now. If anyone in this building has a problem with that, they can discuss it with our legal counsel who is standing behind me." Nobody had a problem with that. Mo stood. Elijah put his hand on her back between her shoulder blades and walked her out of the room. In the hallway, away from the officers, away from the fluorescent lights, he stopped, looked at her. His jaw was still set, but his eyes were doing something different. His eyes were doing what they did when he was 11. And saw her cry for the first time at Evelyn's hospital bed. "Mama!" "I'm all right, baby."
"No, you're not."
"No," she said, "I'm not, but I'm going to be."
He hugged her. In the hallway of the security wing of Montgomery Regional Airport, a 34-year-old CEO in a 3-piece suit held his 60-year-old mother in a ginger ale-stained Spellman hoodie, and neither of them said anything for a while. That night, room 412 at the Renaissance Hotel in Montgomery became a war room. Omo sat on the bed, finally showered, wearing a hotel robe, the handkerchief washed and spread flat on the nightstand to dry. Elijah sat at the desk, laptop open, phone on speaker. Sandra Oyalaran arrived at 8:45, rolling a carry-on full of legal files, the Mont Blanc pen already in her hand. Omo played the voice recording, 22 minutes of audio, Vicky's voice clear as church bells. Every word, every insult. The slap, a sharp sound like a book dropping. The ginger ale, a wet rush followed by a gasp Mo didn't remember making. The sound of a zipper splitting, books hitting the floor. Vicky's voice again, bright and clean. Get your things and get off my plane. You are contaminating this aircraft.
Sandra listened without moving.
When it finished, she capped the Mont Blanc and said, I need the flight attendant's testimony and I need the original video from the passenger who recorded it. The edited version is defamation. The original is evidence. Elijah leaned back, tapped his finger on the desk 3 times. Mama, we can do this quiet.
I call Summit Air's board directly. Play them the recording. Demand termination, settlement, policy reform, no press, no lawsuit.
The contract stays intact. And we get everything we want without putting you on every screen in the country, again. Mo looked at her son. She loved him in a way that made her chest hurt. She loved that he wanted to shield her. She loved that his first instinct in that security office was rage and not strategy. But she shook her head. Elijah, every quiet settlement is a door that stays closed. Somebody else walks through that door next month, next year, and the same thing happens. And that person might not have a son with a private jet and a legal team. Mama, I don't want the world watching you get ginger ale poured on your head.
Then the world needs to see it, so nobody pours it again.
Elijah went quiet, tapped the desk twice more, looked at Sandra. Sandra looked back at him with the expression of a woman who had already picked a side and was waiting for him to catch up.
All right, Mama, he said. Then we burn it down.
Sandra worked through the night. Marcus Webb was the first call. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice thin and tight, the voice of a man who had not slept. Sandra told him what she needed. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I wrote everything down. Every minute. I'll send you the pages. He paused. There were children's names on those packages. I just couldn't act like I didn't see that. The subpoena for the original video hit Tyler Brennan's inbox the next morning. His lawyer called Sandra within the hour, trying to negotiate. Sandra said, 1 sentence, produce the original footage by 5 p.m.
Or we file for spoliation sanctions and a defamation suit simultaneously. The footage arrived at 4:37.
The original video was 3 minutes and 12 seconds long. It showed everything, Vicky shouting from the moment she entered the cabin. The finger pointing, the insults, the slap, Vicky's open palm connecting with the left side of Mo's face, Mo's head turning with the impact. The ginger ale poured deliberately from above, the way you pour water on a fire you want out. The bag dragged across the floor, the books falling, the stuffed elephant rolling across cream carpet, and Mo sitting in the wet seat, not saying a word, her fingers on a handkerchief in her lap. Denise Yarbrough at Aviation Weekly published the full investigation 3 days later. Audio recording, original video. Marcus Webb's written testimony, employment records showing Vicky had faced 2 prior discrimination complaints, both buried by Gerald Whitmore. Phone records showing Gerald had contacted the airport security supervisor's office 41 minutes after the flight landed. The story went national in 6 hours. Gerald Whitmore tried to get ahead of it. He fired Vicky Ashford within 90 minutes of the article dropping, released a statement calling her actions the isolated behavior of a rogue employee, and scheduled a press conference for the following morning. He never made it to the press conference. Sandra had already sent a second package to the Summit Air Board of Directors. This one contained Marcus's testimony about the crew's internal communications, including messages between Vicky and Gerald that made the nature of their relationship impossible to deny. It contained records of Gerald's direct intervention in Vicky's 2 prior complaints. And it contained the phone log showing Gerald's call to airport security, the call that turned a routine ID check into a 5-hour detention. The emergency board meeting was held at Summit Air headquarters in Scottsdale, Arizona, on a Tuesday afternoon. Gerald sat at the head of the table. He was still wearing his wedding ring. He was still rotating it with his thumb. Margaret Whitmore sat across from him. Pearl necklace, silver hair, quiet hands. She had read every document Sandra sent. She had read the text messages. She had read the phone logs. She had read 23 years of marriage in a new light in approximately 45 minutes. She spoke last. Her voice was the same voice it had always been. Low, measured. The kind of voice that never needs to be raised because it has never needed volume to carry weight. She moved to remove Gerald Whitmore from the position of Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately. She moved to accept all terms of the Equal Skies Legal Fund settlement, including mandatory anti-discrimination training for all Summit Air personnel, independent oversight committee, and the establishment of the Evelyn Langston Scholarship Fund for Black aviation professionals. She moved to issue a formal public apology to Maureen Langston. The vote was unanimous. Gerald stopped rotating his ring. He looked at Margaret. She did not look back. Vicky Ashford was terminated with cause, barred from employment in commercial and private aviation, and charged with assault. Tyler Brennan's original video, the one he tried to delete, became the centerpiece of a defamation lawsuit that cost him every sponsorship deal he had and a settlement he would be paying off into his 40s. If you've made it this far into this story, you already know this isn't just about a plane. Hit subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Mo arrived at Hope House on a Thursday afternoon, one day late. She pulled the Honda Accord into the gravel driveway, and before she could open the door, Kessia was running across the yard, barefoot, holding a banner made of butcher paper and purple crayon. The letters got smaller toward the end because she ran out of space. "Welcome home, Mama Mo." Mo knelt on the gravel. Kezia crashed into her. Then the others came. Isaiah, Destiny, the twins, Mr. Harold, walking slow behind them with his straw hat in his hands, grinning with every tooth he had left. Mo sat on the porch steps and handed out the books, one by one, each child's name in her handwriting on brown paper. She gave Kessia the stuffed elephant, the gray one with the pink bow, the one that had rolled across the floor of a Gulfstream G700 and been picked up by a young man who couldn't look away from the names on the packages. Kessia held it against her chest and said, "What's her name?" Mo thought for a second. Evelyn. The sun was going down over Montgomery. The porch light came on. Mr. Harold passed a bag of lemon drops around, and the children argued over who got the yellow ones. Mo sat on the top step with her hands in her hoodie pocket, a clean one, same Spellman maroon, and inside the left pocket, her fingers rested on a handkerchief with yellowed lace edges, freshly washed, pressed flat, the navy thread catching the last of the light. E.L. Around her, paper tore and children laughed, and the evening settled into the trees like it had nowhere else to be.